we going to talk about today? Well, we are going to talk about the differences between my first WE Knife Company knife and my newest WE Company knife. WE Knife Company knife. So this is the oldest one I have, and this is the newest one I have. So it's really not that big of an intro. So guys, if you're watching on headphones, turn down the volume because here comes a little bit of music. We are going to look at the differences, just the little subtle differences between my WE 601 and my WE Minax, which was designed by Elliot over at Fair and Forge. Now, this knife is discontinued, and this knife was a prototype, so there's some differences. I can't necessarily say that everything on this is 100%, but I think it's pretty close. Elliot told me that he thinks that this was the approved final design and that there should be no changes between this and what actually is on the market. That's why we did it. But before we get to that, this is Barry Lewis playing in the background. It's one of the channels I like to watch. He does kitchen gadget testing, which I believe that's what he's about to start doing. He's tests some kitchen gadgets. He likes to do what he calls marathons, which I will do from time to time, which is I just watch a bunch of his videos back to back, a playlist of all the kitchen gadget testing. He buys stuff off off of Wish.com. He has people send him stuff. It's a lot of fun. He's really funny. He's actually really good friends with a channel that I had up the other day, which was Ashens. They've actually done collaboration videos together. Really, really love this channel. And like I said, I do this because I can't afford to financially support some of the channels I love. So doing it this way so they get some support, and you guys, even though I'm a small channel, maybe get exposure to a channel you hadn't seen before. It's just a little way to help out those channels. Just another way to support the channels you love. But before we waste any more of y'all's time, let's turn this around and take a quick look at the differences between these knives that are separated by several years. Guys, I'm gonna apologize in advance if there's any background noise. I do have a fan running. It's been hot the last couple days. So what we were talking about, like I said in the intro, we're gonna talk about my newest WE knife versus my oldest WE knife and what's changed. So physically, I mean, as far as milling and things like that, the quality of work has not changed. So this is the WE 601. This was the first WE knife I ever purchased. I got it because I had seen that they were really striking images, and I really fell in love with action and everything on this knife. So one of the very first things you're gonna notice is that WE Knife Company has moved away from these proprietary screws that they used to use, which were a pain because the only tool that you got to do them with was this little thing that came on a keychain, and it was difficult to use. And if it stripped, you were screwed because you only got one. Now, I guarantee I could probably take the pivot screw out of this knife and put it in this knife and be fine. I could probably replace these with Torx, but you know, it would kind of take away from the whole thing. And the fact is, I don't take this knife apart often enough to make it worth changing out the hardware. So all the hardware was this star, like a reverse Torx almost, I guess. So looking at it, you can see markings on the blade. They marked their S35 VN in there. Now, you can't really make a good comparison on this because they are two totally different design knives. I guess if they had brought this, if this model was still in production, which it isn't, this is a discontinued model, we'd be able to just say, okay, these are the differences between the 601 when I bought it several years ago and when it got, you know, when it was done just now. So, but I mean, you can see their pivots are the same. And I mean, the quality of work has not changed. It's not like the older knives were any better or any worse than new ones, which sometimes you see. But these were some unique space age looking designs. This really looked cool and alien. It looked like something out of a science fiction movie. So yeah, I mean, physically on the outside, that's what's changed. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these apart and look at these on the inside. So through the magic of editing, we can do this. And magically the knives are disassembled. So we're gonna take a quick look at this, and I have to apologize in advance. I had a hard time with this. I let someone borrow this knife to use for review, and as you can see down inside that hole, they used super glue instead of Loctite, for some reason on the screw, I don't know if they were having a hard time getting the backspacer to stay in place because it does like to move around or what, but they took the knife apart and they used super glue. So you can see there's super glue on a screw. Well, the problem with that is there's super glue here that is preventing me from removing the pocket clip on my knife here. So let's just look for any big differences. And I think you're gonna be able to pick them out if you look right here at the bearings. So the bearings on the WE 601 use a plastic or nylon bearing race with a multi-row bearing system. The newer ones use these, they're a lot simpler. I like them better. These are brass bearing races with ceramic bearings in them. Now these were ceramic bearings. I find that the multi-row bearing systems have a tendency to not be as smooth. Now there are some obvious exceptions. There are some knives that have proprietary multi-row bearing systems. One of the first ones that comes to mind would be the Shirogorov. I'm sorry, I had to pause for a second, close the door. My daughter was in there talking. It was making more background noise than I wanted to deal with. So Shirogorov has a really good multi-row bearing system that is really smooth. Brown knives have got a really nice multi-row bearing system that are really good. I never like these, and the thing is, everybody just always assumes that more bearings equals smoother, and that's not necessarily the case because even though they're bearings and they roll freely, there is still friction. So more points of friction, more chance you're going to add additional friction. If there's any other real differences, I'm not seeing them. I don't see any big differences in the milling except, bearings. And then the proprietary screws are no longer a thing. So both these knives, neither one of them have changed. They haven't really changed that much. The way that they attach their backspacer is a little different on some knives, but I mean, like I said, these are two different knives, so it's like comparing apples and oranges. It's a little bit different. So, I've still seen some of the WE knives that have that style backspacer where it has the pins for locating. Size of the pivot hole is not any different. As a matter of fact, I checked, the pivots are almost identical in size. You can see right there. They're just identical in size. The only thing that I see that's a little bit different on this knife is this knife does have a detent ramp where this one does not. So, just minor differences. They both have basically the same style over travel stop / lock bar insert. I mean, this knife's just designed a little bit differently, so the detent ball is in a different place, but it still uses the same style stop pin assembly and all these things. That they're just pretty much the same. This knife has a little bit of milling removed. So the only big difference that I'm seeing, or that you would see, would be they kind of went away from this multi-row bearing system and we just went to a standard crimped over bearing, which, in case you guys are ever curious, there is no right way or wrong way to put these in. I just personally like to put them in so that the open side of them is down enclosed. So I know that some knives have a cutout in the blade for the bearings. So whichever side, the little area that is not going to get as much dirt in it, I like to put on the surface, either in the blade or in the pocket, wherever it's pocketed. So the open side of it I put down. So yeah, I mean, not a lot of big differences in these knives. They're still milled the same. They're still done as well. Their stop pins are mounted similarly. Like I said, their pivots are about the same. When you look at it, it seems like, though, even though I said they're the same, I'm an idiot and should have measured it. So let's go ahead and do that. I grabbed out my calipers and I'm gonna pull this down just a little bit so it's a little bit more vertical. As my grandfather used to say, the less often a man makes declarative statements, the less often it is proved that he's an idiot. 0.19 on the newer one, 0.23 on the older ones. They're still fairly similar. That is definitely a bigger pivot now that I look at it. But we'll go ahead and leave that in because I made a declarative statement and made myself look like an idiot. The other thing that is still the same is this keyed pivot, where you have an area that is cut out and washer fell. I dropped something. Oh, stop pin fell. Sorry. I'm trying to keep parts where they belong. And then same on this one. I'm not going to try. Well, pop that out. Same thing, just a slotted area on this, but as opposed to, it's still keyed, but it's done a little bit differently. As you can see, that has just a small little keyed area, and this one has a much larger, if I can get it turned around. Come on, give me some light. I can't see, I'm not in focus. Focus, there we go. You can see this one just has an entire edge of that lip that has been milled away, and this one just has a little keyed point. So apologize for the light, guys. I don't know what's going on with light, and I don't know why things aren't focusing, but there you can see that a little bit better. There's that one, that's the older style, and the newer style just has a simple little cutout at one point there. So let's go ahead and put these knives back together. There we go, and they are back together through the magic of editing. Even changed the background. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm really frustrated with something before we go any further on this. I'm really upset about this. I'll talk about it in the outro. I found some things with this knife, taking it apart and putting it back together, that I'm gonna have to take to Elliot. There's something wrong now with this knife that was not wrong before, and it's more than just some super glue in there. So just a little word of caution in the outro. But as you can see, not super big differences between the new and the old. There's still quality. I mean, this was the first WE knife I ever had. It's still a quality knife. I still carry it. I'm going to shoot another video about it, revisiting, and we're going to talk about this knife and and some of the things I love about it. But you know, just wanted to look at some of the things that have changed, because you know, companies changed. Little itty bitty things, like the way that they changed the keying on their pivot so that it locks in place. The way that their pocket clip is put on. This is a long screw that goes all the way through, so you don't have screws. You only have screws on one side. Just little things that they've changed that I might not agree with or might not like, but they have been done differently. I definitely do like the change in the bearings. The bearings on this just are not as smooth as the bearings on this. They just are not. And it has a lot to do with points of friction, and more points of friction equals more friction. Even if they're small points, the more bearings you add, the more friction you're adding. So smaller bearings and less of them has a tendency to make a knife smoother. There are some exceptions. Like I said, the brown knives that I had come in, excellent action on that multi-row bearing system. Shirogorov has got one that my friend Chris over at Cerberus Knives had that we took apart and cleaned up, and they're in a race, but they're more akin to IKBS, where if you take that out, those bearings will fall out of the race, and you have to be really careful getting it back together. Not as big a pain as IKBS, but really similar. One of the other things that I'll say is that this proprietary screw, the tool that you have to use for it, can be a pain because it does not fit in a driver. So to get any bit of torque on it, you pretty much need to use something and turn it into a T-driver. I happen to be using one of my small jeweler's screwdrivers that I keep for my tools, and use it as a T-driver to be able to get it in and out, because I just can't do it. I know some people say that they can do it with just a key ring on it. I find it awkward to try and do it that way. Maybe it's just because I got big sausage banana fingers. One of the things that I really don't like about it is that it's starting, as you can see over years, it's starting to crack and give way. And I noticed it when I was tightening this down. It does not work as well. It's trying to strip out. So I need to talk to the folks over at WE Knife Company and see if I can get a tool for this or replacement screws for this that are the Torx style. So let's go ahead and we will flip this up and do some final thoughts. So like I said, guys, final thoughts here. Not a lot of differences between these knives. They're still great. Like I said, I did find there's something wrong with this knife after it came back from a customer. I had a really hard time getting it apart, and it did not go back together and act the way it did before. So someone that I let borrow this knife did something. I'm not gonna throw them out there because I went to look and see, did they do a video about this knife? I sent them 2 knives. This is the second one that I've had that had super glue and stuff in it. The other one was one of my automatics. It was a Microtech. I'm really upset with this individual, but I went and looked, and their channel doesn't even exist anymore. So I think maybe they realized they weren't very good at the knife disassembly stuff. They only had like 12 or 13 subscribers at the time, but the guy was really cool about it. So just be careful who you send your stuff to, fellow YouTubers out there. There are trustworthy guys. Like I would have no problem sending any of my stuff to Jared over at Neves Knives. I would have no problem sending my stuff to Scott over as a matter of fact, have sent stuff to Scott over at Metal Complex. bird shot, guys that I know that you can trust, but I kind of want to help this guy out. I sent him like 2 knives, they came back, and I didn't even see a video go up, so I'm really kind of upset. There's something physically wrong inside this knife that I can't put my finger on, so I figure why not take it to the designer. So next time I see Elliot, I'm going to take this. It works, it functions, but the action on it, there's definitely something in this that is not the same. So guys, if you like the videos, give them a thumbs up. If you don't like them, give them a thumbs down, but please try to tell me why. If you want to support the channel, like I said, there's affiliate links. You can give applause. There's membership. Any of the affiliate links down below will help. I'm going to work on trying to get some new affiliate links. You might see some more of those. There's the Ember Shirt Co. stuff. And if you do want to become a member, just remember, premium tier members get added to exclusive giveaways this month. For the month of July, I'm giving away one of my handmade custom knives to the premium tier members. Yeah, I mean, that's about it, guys. I love you all. Have a good and safe week or weekend. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. And I will see you in the next video.